Men who have been sexually assaulted by women. What's your story? She was my friend's mum. There was about 5 of us neighborhood boys who'd go swimming at her son's house. Afterwards she'd make us dry off and walk around in a circle, and she'd hold our testicles and penis as we walked past. We were about 4/5/6 years old at the time. Was watching the sexual assault scene in The Butterfly Effect when it triggered a flashback. I was 29. I've noticed a lot of people mentioning poor memory as a coping mechanism. I have the worst short-term memory. I've spoken to doctors about medication because it affects my work life and personal life. If I meet you at a party, I still might not remember your name after being told 10 times. My mom's friend used to roughly jerk me off whenever I was left in her care. I never told my parents because she convinced me the tolerance would make me strong and desirable to girls in the future, and made it a secret between us. Years back my babysitter took me to the bathroom. As I remember she sat on the toilet and used my hand to touch/rub herself. I was 5-ish at the time. She was a teenage family friend. It only happened once. Never became clear what happened till years later. Mom would guilt me into laying in bed with her at night. Would tell me she didn't want to be on this planet anymore and would be leaving soon. Used to make me big spoon and rub up against me. Did that from childhood well into my teenage years. The last time it happened I was 16. She was drunk and rolled over and grabbed my dick. I shoved her off. She got pissed and didn't talk to me the rest of the night. I don't really see her much anymore. As a child, my brother and sister both sexually molested and raped me. I was about 6 when my brother started, and about 9 or 10 when my sister started. She waited until we had a day off from school and my parents were at work. She brought me into my parents' room and had me do a lot of things. At one point, she took out a recorder and taped it. Thankfully, that recording has since disappeared. I'm 39 years old now. I'm no contact with either of my siblings. 13-year stepsister coming into her own. She was sexually abused by father figures earlier in her life. Used me as a tester. I was 6-year. When I was 5, my babysitter at the time made me strip down and lay on top of her naked body. She was maybe 14 at the time. My babysitter forced me to watch porn and asked if my penis was hard. I didn't do anything about it. Friend's mother. She was 50 something. We were teenagers. She assaulted at least 4 of us. This was the cool house where you could drink, hang out, etc. For my part, she once pointed a rifle that I assumed was loaded at me and another kid and told us to wash her dishes. Partway through she reached into my pants and started stroking me. Her husband actually walked into the room during this, and when I looked to him, he said, "Don't look at me. She's got the gun." I know other friends got a lot worse than I did. She also assaulted the girl who would later be my first adult partner with a vibrator. Her daughter's BF lived with them for a year, and I'm pretty sure he got the worst of it. When I was in my early 20s she died of a heart attack, and that guy brought a 6-pack to my house to tell me. Only time I've toasted to someone's death. I've had a few seriously unwell ex-partners. One used to just abuse the fuck out of me for hours till I gave in. There were regular sexual assaults which I diarized. When I went to the police they had me back 13x to get through the statement. I had 140 pages of text message evidence and 2 phone I gave him to collect the evidence from. I've spoken with this woman since. Before her interview the police assured her she won't be charged, it's just a formality. 100% I would have done years in prison if I did all of that to her. When I was a private in the army, a female friend in my unit became somewhat obsessive over me to the point of being a stalker after I rejected her advances. We had faulty locks on our barracks doors that could be opened with a pair of pliers. She would casually break into my room and wait for me so we could talk about us. She would normally leave if I told her to, so I didn't think much of it. One night I came home drunk, passed out, and woke up in the middle of the night to her giving me a blowjob. I didn't even know how she got in my room. When I realized what was happening, She attempted to ride me. I pushed her off and told her to leave. My roommate, friends, NCOs, etc. Everyone just thought it was hilarious. It didn't really bother me. But I definitely look back and see that it was wrong. Edit. I wanted to thank the several people that have reached out to ask about my personal safety. I'm fine. I also wanted to thank everyone else who left a supportive comment. This incident happened when I was stationed in South Korea back in 2006. I was 19 years old. I was also engaged at the time. The vast majority of the guys in my platoon were not getting any action, so they thought I was lucky. I got a lot of comments like you should have told her to come to my room if you didn't want her. My squad leader's stance was, if you're not in jail, it's not my concern. My first line supervisor started referring to me as Romeo. I said it didn't really bother me. But looking back, I realized that I slept on my friend's floor for 3 weeks until my door was fixed in an effort to avoid her unwanted late night visits. That being said, I wasn't ever in any actual physical danger, and I think that's why most people chalked it up as not being that big of a deal. I received several private messages from guys telling that I'm lucky and to stop complaining about a free blowjob. And there are also several similar comments in this thread. That's the mentality that a lot of guys have. And it's a contributing factor as to why stuff like this isn't taken seriously. Didn't feel right sending a girl home late at night, so I let her stay with me in my hotel room. Wasn't planning on her staying that night and didn't really consider having sex with her. Next morning I thought I was dreaming of sex, then started wondering why it was feeling good. Then I fully woke up just as I finished internally without a condom. I got tested and she was on her period, so unlikely to get pregnant. I thought I dodged some bullets and it was just unexpected sex or something, until I was with a new partner and we were swapping odd sexual encounters or something, and I brought that up and she was like, "Oh, you were raped." Which was odd, since until that moment I didn't seriously think of it that way. I got roofied by my ex and she posted the sex tape to Pornhub. I was underage at the time. Not as invasive as others here. Throughout school from elementary through high school, girls would play a prank on boys by stealing as much of their clothes as they could. They would literally gang up on one boy, hold him down, and try to strip him to his boxers, running in all directions. You try to fight back, you're in trouble, because boys don't hit girls. Report them to the office? Man up. They're just playing. It wasn't traumatizing, but the double standard was infuriating. Some guys just started swinging, and I'm the consequences. One time a hall monitor tried to take me to the office after I ran into the girls' bathroom for my pants. I just flipped him off and went running after my shirt. In middle school, I was forced to move to the front of the bus after a few months. I was told I was in trouble, but she never told me what I did. I asked her once a week, over a few weeks, and she refused to tell me. Then one day, I left gym still dressed in my gym clothes and made it to the bus first. I asked again, and she said because of this, and rubbed me all over, including my crotch. I honestly didn't feel violated. I was more confused because I thought she said I was doing that to someone else. About a year later, it clicked that she just wanted to molest me. So I was vocal about it. I was then pulled into an office and threatened by the principal to stop making stuff up, or I would be punished. I honestly feel more violated that they forced me to hide what happened. Was at a party. Drunk younger girl kept cornering me and grabbing me. Was awful. But I'm a big guy and she was tiny, and I felt terrible because I couldn't push her away. It felt terrible and everyone was laughing at me. Luckily another girl at the party recognized what was happening and saved me. I was at a Volbeat gig at the Barrowlands in Glasgow about 5 years ago, and just as the gig finished and everyone started to leave, this woman in her late 30s, I was mid-20s at the time, came up to me and put her hand down my jeans and grabbed my junk and then just walked off. I know it sounds like I just let it happen, but I was very drunk and almost in shock at what had just happened. I just stood for a good minute thinking WTF just happened there, and then went on my way to get the train home. I was 12. My parents had called a family friend to see if their daughter could watch me for the night. Their daughter couldn't because she had plans. They had decided that one of her friends would be a suitable replacement. Everything was fine when she had arrived at our house. My mom said it was okay if we had left and got ice cream at some point if we wanted to. I really regret pushing for that to happen. Later on, after my parents leave, about an hour or two after me and the babysitter go out and get ice cream. In our town we had a reservoir and the McDonald's we were heading towards was close by to said reservoir. I didn't really think much of it. Her Jeep was cool. And I thought maybe she just wanted to take the longer route. She pulled off into one of the more secluded areas there, asking if her purse was in the backseat and if I could search for it back there. I obliged. That's when she had pushed me into the backseat. I thought that was weird because it was decently rough. She climbs into the backseat, putting her weight onto my chest, taking my arm, and grabs handcuffs out of said purse that was on the floorboard. Cuffs my arm on the handle of the door. I remember it being so tight around my wrist that it burned when I tried to wiggle out of it. She started to do those things to me. I didn't even know why. I kept saying no and crying, screaming for help. It felt like it lasted forever. She was finally done and she took the cuffs off and threatened me that if I ever told anyone about the favor she did for me, she would say I raped her. She drove back to my house and told me to take a shower before my parents got home. That was 4 nights before I tried to kill myself for the first time. I never came out with it. I didn't think boys could get raped by girls. I felt more comfortable speaking about it when I was 15, when I started to see my counselor. However, my parents didn't believe it happened when we had family counseling. No one in my family took me seriously. Sometimes my mom asks me questions about it now that I'm 22. However, having sex is a little difficult now. Sometimes if I overthink it, I get a really bad panic attack during. If someone is reading this, don't do what I did. Don't wait to tell someone. Tell someone. Please. When I was a freshman in college, a girl who was friends with my roommate's girlfriend put a half Xanax bar in my drink. I woke up the next morning to her naked in my bed with no recollection of the past 12 hours. I like to think my dick wouldn't have been able to work in that state, but she definitely gave it her best effort. She majored in theology and is now a professor at a Catholic university. My friends gave me shit for the rest of the year. I brushed it off, but to this day I feel nervous around women. I wish I could have done something back then. It still haunts me. My older cousin on my mom's side simulated sex with me when we're alone. Touched my genitals often. Kissed me. And tried to have full intercourse several times. This happened between 8 to 13 years old. I was always scared and nervous when I was alone with her. She made me think it was normal though. I still have problems being romantically intimate with anyone and have never been able to trust someone in that way. I have been in therapy consistently for about 3 years now and have finally been able to unpack and heal from this. Although I originally came to therapy for other things, this part of my life is something that comes up a lot.